Welcome to Porto, the second biggest city in Portugal and one of the most beautiful places in the world. Let's take a look. Porto has a city population of about 230,000 people, but this increases drastically to about 1.7 million when including the wider metropolitan area. Located on the Douro River, Porto is famous for its port wine, fine food and many historic buildings, with the core of the city now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The history of the city stretches back to ancient times when it was an important Roman port. Later it fell under Moorish control between 711 to 997, before being reconquered and eventually becoming a part of Portugal. The city's location close to the Atlantic made it a key trading port and a vital part of the Portuguese Age of Discovery. The modern city can be easily reached by air, rail or road and also has an extensive public transport network to help you get around, including its wonderfully decorated main train station. The long history of Porto has filled it with a wealth of wonderful buildings and locations. So many in fact that it was very difficult to choose just 10 locations. So let me know in the comments below if you disagree with my choices. Here is my top 10. Where better to start than a historic church with a tower that can be climbed to give breathtaking views over the entire city. The Clerigos church was constructed in the Baroque style between 1732 to 1750. From inside you can clearly see the elliptical shape of the nave, which is typical of Baroque buildings and is also lavishly decorated. The huge 75-metre high tower was added a little later and completed by about 1763. For a small fee you can climb to the top. It's quite exhausting hauling yourself up the 240 steps to reach the top, but when you get there you'll be rewarded with panoramic views over the entire city. The Cais da Ribeira is Porto's riverside quarter and is a delightful place to stroll around and explore. As well as the lovely riverside scenery, there are many narrow streets to get lost in, with plenty of shops and restaurants. Here are some highlights. Porto Cathedral is a large, mostly Romanesque building. Construction on the current church started in the 12th century and continued on and off until the 16th century with later Baroque additions. The west front with its mighty twin towers is situated on a large open plaza with lovely views over the city, so make sure you take a little time to walk around and have a look. The interior can be visited for a small fee and is definitely worth it and can be combined with the neighbouring palace, which we will look at later. The huge Romanesque nave with its thick and heavy piers is very impressive, especially the crossing with its lofty tower, so make sure you look up. The choir has been altered over the years and is now a wonderfully decorated Baroque space, complete with a highly decorated Baroque altarpiece. The Gothic cloisters are decorated with ornate tiles typical of Portugal. There are also numerous and interesting attached rooms to look around in. The roof of the cloisters can also be accessed. From here you can visit a small museum full of interesting objects, as well as climbing the steps to the top of one of the towers for some lovely views over the city. When you have finished looking around the cathedral, don't miss the Bishop's Palace next door. This Baroque and Rococo building is now a museum with many ornate rooms, full of interesting objects and paintings. However, the main attraction here is the absolutely amazing grand staircase, definitely one of the finest I've ever visited. Our next stop is the Bolsa Palace, which houses the stock exchange, which is located on the impressive Infanta di Henrique Square. Sorry, I probably totally mispronounced the name of that. The palace was built on the site of the ruined cloisters of the church next door, which we will have a look at later. Bolsa Palace was built in neoclassical style and was mostly complete by 1850, although work continued for many decades on the interiors, because as you're going to see, they are lavish. The palace can be visited by guided tour only, and you will need to book a time slot. The interiors of this building are spectacular, so it's definitely worth it. The huge central atrium is perhaps the most impressive space, with a huge iron and glass dome. Just below are frescoes of coat of arms of Portugal and other places that were key trading partners at the time. Leading from the atrium is a monumental staircase under an impressive ceiling. This leads up to a series of ornate rooms that are full of authentic furniture, decorations and frescoes. However, the best room is saved for last, and it will blow you away with its sheer extravagance and ornamentation. The Arab room was built in the Moorish Revival style and was used as a reception hall for important people. It's hard to find any part of it that is not glittering with sumptuous golden decoration. I know I use the word a lot, but this room really is the definition of stunning. When you are finished with the palace, make sure you stop by the Monument Church of St. Francis, which is next door. Here you will find a fascinating museum and also a church with, yes, another stunning interior covered in amazingly detailed golden decoration that will simply dazzle you. Attached to the church is a small museum full of interesting rooms and items. There is also another chapel, and below the complex you will find the catacombs, where you can admire the many tombs inside. It's a little spooky. Outside of the church is also the first stop for the famous historic tram number 1, which you can ride all the way along the river to the beach district and the Atlantic Ocean. Porto is famous for its bridges, and none more so than the Dom Luís Bridge. This large double-decker arched iron structure was completed in 1886. It was designed by Theophile Seyrig, who was a pupil of the famous Gustave Eiffel. You know, that chap that built the tower in Paris. The best place to view the bridge is from the terrace of the nearby Monastery Serra de Pila, which is also worth visiting due to its interesting circular design. The views of the bridge from the monastery's terrace are probably the most iconic in Porto, especially in the evening. The bridge can be crossed by the upper or lower deck, giving access to both sides of the river. It looks kind of epic no matter where you view it from. Having crossed the bridge, we find ourselves in the Vila Nova de Gaia district. This historic area has wonderful views along the river, where you can see many of the Rebelo boats that were famous for transporting Porto wine up and down the river. Also located on this side of the river is the Gaia cable car, which connects the riverside to the top of the Dom Luís Bridge. Crossing back over the bridge, tucked away somewhat, is the Church of St. Clare. The church is attached to a former convent, and from the outside it's somewhat unremarkable. Now, if you weren't already feeling overwhelmed by the exuberant decorations seen earlier, then this place will probably finish you off once you get inside. The nave of the church is absolutely glittering with gilded gold carvings and decorations. It makes you wonder if perhaps there was a surplus of gold just lying around back in the 17th century when the older building was remodelled with the current Baroque stylings. The best view is from the upper gallery, where you can look across the expanse of the church. I recommend bringing sunglasses, as the sumptuous decor will make your eyes pop out. No great city is complete without a great market, and Porto has its own Bolhão market. The location dates back to about 1839, with a current multi-floor neoclassical building dating from about 1914. Here you'll find lots of food to buy, as well as many other interesting things. There is an upper level with walkways you can stroll around if the crowds below get too much. I don't normally talk about food as it's too subjective, but I did find Porto to have some of the tastiest treats I've ever tried. I especially enjoyed the spicy pork bifanas from the famous Conga restaurant, which is just around the corner from the market. And no trip to Portugal is complete without scoffing a six-pack of the famous pastel de nata custard tarts. Hopefully you are not bored of churches, because next up we have twin churches. Both are worth visiting, and there is also a tiny little house squeezed in between them that can be accessed from the Carmo church. On the right side is the Baroque Rococo Carmo church, which was built between 1756 and 1768. On the exterior are some exquisite blue and white tiles which are typical of churches in Porto. The interior has another expansive nave with highly decorated altarpieces. The next door Carmelitas church is a little older and was constructed between 1616 to 1650 with a more Mannerist style classical facade. The interior is once again richly decorated and worth having a look around. Both churches also have little attached museums. Very close to these churches is the Lello bookstore. This shop is considered by many to be the most beautiful bookstore in the world. However, as you can see, it gets extremely busy, so I decided to skip it, but wanted to mention it as no guide to Porto would be complete without it. That's the top 10. However, there is a lot more to see in Porto, so let me know what your favourite places are. Thank you so much for watching. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, comment, or better yet, subscribe to my channel. Have a splendid day. Cheerio.